Did you ever go to jail?
Yeah,
How many times?
a few times.
Today, we're diving deep into the life of a real-life gangster-turned-actor, Tony Sirico. Best known for his unforgettable role as Paulie Walnuts Gualtieri on the HBO hit show The Sopranos, Tony's life was just as colorful off-screen as it was on-screen. From his tough Brooklyn roots to Hollywood stardom, this is the story of a man who survived the gritty New York streets and was loved by everyone who knew him. Health Wealth Diary presents the real-life Paulie Walnuts. This is the Tony Sirico story. Born Gennaro Anthony Sirico Jr. on July 29, 1942 in Brooklyn, New York, Tony grew up in the Bensonhurst neighborhood, a hotbed of Italian-American culture. Tony was raised in a working-class family alongside his brother Robert, who's actually a Catholic priest for the Sacred Heart Parish in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Tony's upbringing in Bensonhurst would later become the foundation of his tough guy persona that he so effortlessly brought to the screen. But Tony's life wasn't always glamorous. In his younger years, Tony was known more for his real-life ties to the streets than his acting skills. Tony later admitted in interviews that his time running with the wrong crowd gave him first-hand knowledge of the mob world, a world that would ironically become his bread and butter in acting.
Yeah, you didn't want to know me. I was a dangerous, dangerous kid.
By his early 20s, he was deeply involved in the criminal underworld, racking up over 20 arrests by the time he turned 30. Tony's rap sheet included charges like robbery, assault, weapons possession, and even extortion. In one infamous incident, he was accused of robbing a nightclub at gunpoint, which he later admitted was part of his reckless lifestyle. Tony was known for his flamboyant personality even back then, reportedly strutting around his neighborhood in expensive suits and gold chains. Around this time, Tony was married and had 2 children with his high school sweetheart. He later met a younger girl from the neighborhood and ended up falling in love with her, eventually even leaving his wife and children just to be with her. This was a mistake that Tony would regret for the rest of his life.
Fell in love with a little girl in the neighborhood. I was madly in love with this girl. I was madly in love with her. I left my wife for her, left my 2 kids for her.
In 1971, Tony hit rock bottom. He was arrested for felony weapons possession and spent nearly 2 years in Sing Sing prison. It was during his incarceration that he had a life-changing moment. Not only did he end ties with the younger girl from the neighborhood that ruined his marriage, but he also found a new calling in life. While in prison, Tony attended a performance by a group of ex-convict actors and realized that he could channel his larger-than-life personality into something more productive. It was this epiphany that set him on the path to acting. After his release, Tony made the bold decision to leave the street life behind and pursue acting, a tough feat for someone with no formal training and a criminal record. But what Tony lacked in experience, he made up for in authenticity. He began attending auditions in New York, quickly catching the attention of filmmakers looking for someone who could embody the gritty realism of the streets. Tony's first acting credit came in the 1974 film Crazy Joe, a crime drama loosely based on the life of mobster Joey Gallo. In the movie, Tony had a small role, but it was enough to get his foot in the door. He followed it up with parts in other crime-centric films like Fingers in 1978, starring Harvey Keitel. During the late 1970s and 80s, Tony became a regular in mob films, earning bit parts in movies and TV shows like Kojak and Miami Vice. Though his roles were often small, he brought an undeniable energy and authenticity to every scene. Directors loved casting him as henchmen, enforcers, and low-level mobsters because they knew he brought real-world experience to the roles. Tony also worked with some of the biggest names in Hollywood during this period. He had a brief but memorable role in Goodfellas, playing Tony Stacks, a mobster involved in the infamous Lufthansa heist. Though the role was small, it solidified his status as a go-to actor for mafia films. While Tony's rugged looks and streetwise demeanor made him a natural for mob roles, it also led to typecasting. He often joked in interviews that he'd been killed on screen more times than he could count. But instead of resenting it, Tony leaned into his niche. He believed that if he was going to play mobsters, he'd play them better than anyone else. Tony once said, "Where I come from, every guy is a character, and I was able to draw from that." Though Tony had left his criminal past behind, he wasn't without his struggles. Adjusting to life outside of the streets wasn't easy, and he often found himself at odds with the challenges of breaking into Hollywood. Money was tight, and there were times he considered walking away from acting altogether. But his resilience and a little bit of luck kept him going. By the late 1990s, Tony Sirico had built a reputation as one of the most authentic mob actors in the business. But it wasn't until he landed the role of Paulie Walnuts on The Sopranos that he truly became a household name. And as with most things in Tony's life, his journey to the groundbreaking HBO series was anything but ordinary. Tony was cast in The Sopranos after a chance encounter with David Chase, the show's creator. Chase had seen Tony's work in films like Goodfellas and The Pickup Artist and knew he had the perfect energy for the gritty, darkly comedic world of The Sopranos. Originally, Tony auditioned for the role of Uncle Junior, but he didn't feel the part was right for him. Instead, Chase created Paulie Walnuts, a role tailor-made for Tony's unique blend of charm, toughness, and humor. Tony himself admitted that Paulie was an exaggerated version of him, saying, "I lived the life of a wise guy before I got into acting, so I know the walk, the talk, the mannerisms." Paulie. Co-stars often described him as a lovable but intimidating presence, with a deep sense of loyalty to his friends. Michael Imperioli, who played Christopher Moltisanti, said Tony was like a real-life wise guy, always cracking jokes, telling stories, and keeping everyone entertained between takes. The impact of The Sopranos cannot be overstated. Widely regarded as one of the greatest TV series of all time, the show revolutionized television storytelling, and Tony Sirico was a key part of that legacy. Paulie Walnuts became a cultural icon, quoted and imitated by fans around the world. After The Sopranos ended in 2007, Tony continued to embrace his mobster image. He appeared in films like Woody Allen's Cafe Society. He also lent his voice to Family Guy, voicing Vinny the dog in a recurring role. Though he played many characters, Tony would forever be remembered as Paulie Walnuts. In his later years, Tony Sirico stepped back from the fast-paced world of Hollywood and focused more on family, friends, and the loyal fans who adored him. Though his health began to decline, his larger-than-life personality never faded. In his final years, Tony battled several health issues, including dementia, which significantly impacted his life. Despite these struggles, Tony remained surrounded by love and support from his family, friends, and fans.
Are you afraid to die?
No. The last thing on my mind.
You ready to die?
Oh, yeah. It doesn't frighten me at all.
On July 8, 2022, Tony Sirico passed away in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at the age of 79. The news of Tony's passing sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. His co-stars from The Sopranos paid heartfelt tributes, with Michael Imperioli calling him truly irreplaceable. Beyond his acting, Tony's generosity and warmth left a lasting impression on everyone who knew him. He supported numerous charities, particularly those that helped veterans and children in need. For all his tough guy bravado on screen, those who knew him personally often described him as kind, loyal, and full of life. Tony Sirico's life was as epic as the characters he played. From the streets of Brooklyn to becoming a television legend, his journey reminds us that it's never too late to reinvent yourself. Rest in peace, Tony. You'll always be our Paulie Walnuts.
What do you hear? What do you say?
What's your favorite Paulie Walnuts moment? Leave your answers in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Health Wealth Diary.